Welcome along, everyone. It's now 7 p.m. and it's time to start webinar 4 of 4, which will complete our series for this year. And this series will focus on, this webinar tonight will focus on our final part of the overall presentation, governance. So welcome along, everyone. My name's Andre Chewson. I'm from Pro Sport International. I'll be hosting this webinar tonight on governance on behalf of the Queensland Water Ski and Wakeboard Federation. This particular webinar concludes what has been a 6-month project to date in regards to getting out and providing a project of management, administration and governance, education and training, mentoring support for clubs and organisations across water ski, wakeboard and barefoot water ski within the state of Queensland. So funding was received through the Active Industry Project Fund from the Queensland Government through the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport. And from that, we began the process with a survey sent out to all of the members across the various divisions, across the various regions and down into the clubs to get some feedback against the actual program parameters. And from there, we began to develop the actual presentation. From there, we've then gone out to deliver these across the state, beginning up in Cairns, and down through the regional centres, culminating in the final presentation down in Brisbane. And from there, we've moved on to these webinars, with the first one dealing with the actual structure and management of the QWWF and its relationship with WAWA, and the relationship it has also with the various divisions and the divisions down through into their regions and into the clubs and other organisations. From there, we then moved over to the management and planning section of the actual presentation, and in there we dealt with things like strategic planning, succession planning, coaching accreditations, those types of things. And then last week we had our seminar on our webinar on administration, and where we focused in on communication and organisation and some of the roles expected from the secretary and other members of your committee. And so this last webinar will now focus on governance and bring that all in together. Okay. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners across the land on which we're meeting this evening, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So what is governance? It's a very good question in regards to where people see governance and its relationship to not-for-profit organisations these days. One of the initial discussions that we had, and this was back in regards to management and planning, was that these days clubs are actually small businesses and they need to be treated as such. And so it's important that clubs understand their role as a small business and then operate a club as such. So you can see here basically good governance and bad governance. So good governance, obviously dealing with the rule of law, being very transparent in your actions, encouraging participation across all areas. So that's inclusivity, being accountable for all the decisions made around the operation of your club / business, and obviously ensuring that you have a sustainable model that you're operating in. So that's making sure that you're earning more than you're spending, that you've got enough members to make sure that you can keep your incorporation running and those types of things. Obviously, bad governance, inefficiency, so not meeting regularly. So therefore not able to then discuss, meet and action on various items. Red tape's always one, that's dealing with the bureaucracy of government, and whether that's your local council in regards to leases, there's all sorts. And then giving up on those types of things and then just letting them slide. Maladministration, and that's pretty straightforward in regards to not actually answering your emails or not answering phone calls or inquiries. Corruption, that's always been a bit of a Achilles heel for clubs. However, these days with the online technology in regards to the use of electronic transactions, so I guess the less dependence on cash, and also the fact that banking these days is done very much online, so the allowance for corruption has certainly been reduced, and obviously secrecy, committees who were making decisions without really the information being disseminated out to the members for discussion. And some of those decisions coming then back to, negatively impact on the club. So at the beginning of the overall presentation, one of the things that we did, as mentioned earlier, was to create a membership survey, which was sent out, and there was a good response to that. One of the questions asked was, are you aware of policies, procedures, rules and regulations that help guide the decision-making of your management committee? So policies and procedures like member protection, social media, working with children, but there are many more on codes of conduct, rules on how you run your events, regulations governing who can attend and those types of things. While there wasn't a bad response in regards to those who were aware, 52% were not. And so it is one of the reasons why this particular presentation has been developed. It's here to assist all organisations across all of the divisions, down through the regions, into the clubs, whether they're affiliated or social, to be more aware of what is happening around them and to make sure that they take all reasonable steps to ensure that they're running a compliant organisation that's meeting, the policies, procedures, the rules and regulations around running their club. So good governance, the basis of good governance. So good governance is fundamentally about the following. Okay, number one, it's about protecting the rights of members and stakeholders. And so protecting the rights of members and stakeholders is through having an effective, up-to-date constitution. So for those clubs that haven't done anything about their constitution for quite a long time, you'll actually find that the Queensland government has, over the past 3 years, enacted new laws in regards to the Office of Fair Trading and what needs to be included into a constitution these days. I'm not going to dive into it because otherwise we'll be here for too many hours. Suffice to say that if you haven't looked at your constitution lately, you do need to go in there and you do need to have a look at it and obviously bring that up to date. Okay. Assisting the continued success and growth of a club or association. So good governance is about making sure that when you step off from your role on the committee, that you have ensured the continued sustainability that you've put in place, or you have continued to work with developed plans and procedures that are helping to grow your club or association, that you're aware of opportunities for greater diversification, greater inclusion. So if you're a predominantly male-based club, that you're moving forward to have more females involved in your club or your organisation, or if you're a club that has a significant interest from a particular minority, that you're being inclusive and giving them opportunities to come and join your club, that your members are being surveyed at the end of every year so that you can receive their feedback on how you are operating and how you can continue to provide a warm and an inviting and welcoming club or organisation. Further to that, good governance is about making sure that you've developed strategic goals and direction. And one of the most important documents that every organisation can have is have a strategic plan. A plan that gives you some idea of where you're going and how you're going to get there. And as an example, and to, I guess, dive across into the ramifications of being more environmentally aware and running a cleaner and greener activity, the transition of power boats or tournament boats or whatever you would like to call them, transferring the transformation of those into hybrids and potentially electrical. So as an organisation moving forward, do we now start thinking about charging stations at our clubs so that we can accommodate electric boats for competition and for events and things like that? And that's just one small, I guess, element to making sure that as an organisation, you're driving good governance by being aware of what the needs are moving forward, and that you've got them outlined in some type of strategic plan, and that beneath that strategic plan, you have created some form of operational plan so that you can monitor your performance and ensure that those strategic goals are being achieved. And an operational plan will be set up by a management committee, and obviously they will then seek to ensure that they can deliver on those strategic goals within the 12-month period that they're looking at putting those operational matters into. So as an example, it could be that strategically the organisation has identified some new infrastructure, and operationally the club has set a fundraising target of say $10,000 or $20,000, and so over the course of that 12 months they're going to take steps to see if they can fundraise or seek sponsorship or something to achieve that strategic goal operationally within the funding. Good governance is one of the important areas in ensuring that your rules and your regulations are adhered to. And these are rules and regulations both on the water and off the water. So I'm pretty certain that, and in my discussions across the state, most organisations that are running events have a checklist that they take on board and that they use when they are hosting an event. But it's about making sure that every time the club is using the water, that that particular checklist is used to ensure that the water is safe to use. No crocodiles in there, but also if there's been heavy rain, that there's no underwater logs or something in there that could cause injury or even worse. So making sure that rules of behaviour, and within that you can also add in your codes of conduct. So good governance deals with areas of behaviour and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but it also deals with codes of conduct. So what is expected of a person attending your particular club, whether they're a spectator whether they're a competitor, whether they're an official, a volunteer, and so on and so forth. So we dealt both in management, planning and administration about codes of conduct and spectators' codes of conduct, having them, visibly aware and around the precinct so that people can see them. But closer to home, having actual documents that members can sign. So, and that is about reducing your risk. So risk both internal and external. So external risk, as I mentioned, is making sure that you have rules and regulations around the use of on-water activities. So once again, dealing with like up north with the recent floods and the downpour of rain, checking that your particular site is safe for use again, and that people can undertake the activities safely. So reducing risk internally. Reducing risk internally is ensuring that you have the right policies in place, such as your policy regarding those who must have a blue card or a working with children card. So ensuring that when you're doing these, you're doing coaching activities for juniors, that you are doing those with fully accredited coaches, and that they also have blue cards. Okay. Good governance is also about creating a welcoming and inclusive environment that meets people's needs. So making sure that if you are hosting a participation event, some type of come and try or something like that, that you have people, designated members of the club who are there to meet these new people, give them a bit of a tour around your facility, answer their initial questions, stay with them during the day, make sure that they're being attended to, make sure that everyone that they're introduced to is also welcoming and inviting, and that everyone is providing solid, invitation and feedback to these people, but also that we're understanding about the diversity in nature. So we're talking about whether that is across people's religious beliefs. So some clubs are now moving to installing multi-faith prayer rooms, so that people of different faiths are able to carry out their own particular activities. That then means that they can then be a member of your particular organisation, enjoy your activity, whilst also meeting their own particular religious needs. We also have, understanding and welcoming those people who may identify across different various sexual preferences or gender identification. So having in place processes to ensure that these types of scenarios can be made more welcoming for those who are seeking to attend your club. As an example, having a unisex toilets, male, female, so that someone who doesn't identify as either can use those, and then also having so if we have people with disabilities, making sure that you have the proper disability accessible facilities, so that you can cover off on that as well. So there's quite a deal involved in ensuring that, as an organisation, you're there to make sure that a person's experience is positive. It's not a negative experience and they go away saying that they'll never go back there again. So, just taking that little bit of extra time to sit down, discuss, even if it means going out and talking to a group and just finding out exactly what their needs are so that you can make them feel welcome, make them feel included. Good governance is also about meeting all your legal responsibilities, and one of the things these days, and one of the great things that technology has brought about is the ease in which we're able to meet our legal responsibilities these days, and the fact that you can even do your OFT return online. So a lot of clubs these days are not having a great deal of difficulty. The area of concern that they have is the actual ability to succession plan across that, and good governance is ensuring that you do have in place appropriate succession planning so that incoming committees, one, they're well aware of what the role encompasses. They've had some mentoring and training before they can take it on, and that they have all of the required forms that need to be signed off, whether that's change of bank signatories or OFT returns or whatever it might be, ABN renewals, those types of things. That good governance is there about providing all of those bits and pieces so that your club can move, or your organisation can move effectively and smoothly and transition across to your new committee. One of the other areas is about implementing robust and reliable systems. And what we mean by that is areas such as within your administration, having effective meetings. So ensuring that if you have a meeting once a month, that it's set up on a date and a time that is not clashing with anything else. So some clubs are still looking to run ad hoc meetings at the end of an event. Probably the worst time ever to have a meeting, because generally most people on a committee have children or a family, and at the end of a weekend where everybody's tired and they're probably getting a little bit cranky, the last thing you want to be having is a meeting. So we're talking about a reliable system where everyone knows, on the third Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m, that's when we have our meeting. And as we talked about in administration last week, it's about getting the particular agendas out early and so on and so forth. And if you miss that, it will be available early in the new year as a recording on the drop down from the website from QWWF, and you can go back there, or if you'd like to see that, you can certainly email me and I'll send up a recording to you about administration, or even management and planning, which was the first one that we dealt with. So governance and all of the various dot points I'm dropping down here have all been discussed in some fashion across the first two webinars. Because governance wraps it all up. Governance, is there about making sure that you can run your club or your organisation efficiently. So one of the very important areas of making sure that you've got good governance is about ensuring that you've got endorsed processes and adopted policies, and that they're in place and that they are effectively communicated to all. So when we're talking about endorsed processes, we're talking about the processes where someone can register to compete in an event. Sure. Most people know how it's all done, but there might be new people. So if it's there and there's a checklist or a guideline on how to do that, adopted policies, the policies that you believe are relevant to the running of your organisation, to the simple fact, and we've talked about membership protection and we've talked about blue cards, but there are many other policies in place these days to ensure the safety and the security of those attending your events. And one of those in particular that is very relevant at this very time is a heat policy. So going out, because even though you're competing out on the water, and the water's probably nice and cool and it's quite refreshing, people are still sweating, dehydrating. So there's a risk there. So as we said, reducing risk. Good governance is about reducing and managing your risk. It's about ensuring that you've got rules and regulations that are adhered to. So your adopted policy has to link into those, and it has to, whatever the median ambient temperature policy is, that, if it reaches that, competition has to be stopped until it drops below those types of things. Or it's about effectively managing your competitors, that they're staying properly hydrated, and or that you're running your events early in the morning, late in the evening, things like that. So it's about making sure that you're looking after the safety and security of all of your members, but also those who are attending, whether they're spectators or volunteers, and that you have in place processes that you can effectively communicate these to everyone. So, not everyone will understand about a heat policy, but if you've got good, effective communication where you're able to get that up, where you've got, your tournament director on some type of PA system advising due to the circumstances. I was at the Brisbane Royal Women's Soccer game yesterday, and they didn't start the game till 5 p.m. Because of the heat. But even after 20 minutes, they stopped the game for a water break. And then the players on the side were all under wet towels and these ice and so on and so forth. So while water ski, wakeboard, and barefoot are certainly different in regards to where you're competing or you're participating, the fundamentals of ensuring that you are looking after those who are competing or practicing or just enjoying it are still there. Okay. Good governance is important because it's about making confident, timely, good decisions and effectively implementing them. And that comes back to, once again, having an effective set of minutes for your meetings. And as we discussed in admin last week, when you're running effective meetings, you're then developing good governance through that. And by that, you're able to then say that you're going to get the right people to do the right job, and they're going to do it within a set time frame, and that's going to be for the benefit of the club and everyone involved. Just excuse me for a moment. And okay. Improving your efficiency, giving more time to focus on additional priorities. And so governance and good governance is about having a look at your situation, going, well, okay, how can we deal with this better? How can we put in place things that lessen the time load on our volunteers, but allows us to be more efficient? So some of the things, and so people should always be looking at how you can create more effective systems. Some of those in regards to a lot of clubs now are moving to where generic emails, so that, and they're club related, whether that's a Gmail account or the club sets up its own internet system with an ISP provider. And from there, creating club-based emails. Therefore, they're taking away the need to use, excuse me, need to use personal emails, but also the storage of club documentation on people's personal computers as well. So by having everything stored on club computers, whether that's one for a secretary, one for a treasurer, or one for a president, that way then, and we talked about succession planning can be improved because you can take the documentation, it's all there on your laptop, give them the password that lets them in, give them the password that lets them access the internet account, and away you go. So that's just one example how clubs can make life a little bit easier for the volunteers and just allow you to then spend a little bit more time on doing things which are much more pleasant. And that comes down to, as an example, how efficiently you're running things like your canteen and what needs to be done in there to improve. Because quite often, as with all clubs, the focus is always on the actual delivery of the activity, whether that's on a sporting field or out on the water. But quite often, what enables that to happen is not being taken care of. And so education training for management committee members, and we spoke about this in the earlier webinars and across the seminars. And one of the things that came out of the surveys as well was the simple fact that nearly 70% of people who answered the surveys said that they spent more time in management, administration, governance than they did in actually, the actual activity and events and so on and so forth. However, the majority of education training and that is delivered within the actual participation forum. So looking at providing more support to your management committees, therefore then you've got better skilled volunteers, therefore then you should be able to then move quickly and more efficiently in dealing with the day-to-day running of your organisation. And one of the most important aspects of good governance is about being clear and transparent at all times with your decision making. It's probably the fundamental part of good governance. You saw there in the earlier at the with the two cowboys, or the sheriff and the bad cowboy, good governance and bad governance, and bad governance was about secrecy. So when clubs are looking to make decisions should always be based on the business aspect and what is in the best long-term interest of the organisation. So emotion always needs to be taken out of these decisions, and sometimes that's very, very difficult. People have invested a lot of time, a lot of emotional commitment to their particular organisation, to their passion of what they enjoy. And so it's difficult sometimes to separate that from the hard decisions that have to be made. But as we said, sport these days is a business. And if you're in the sport of barefoot water ski, then you're in the business of making as many people as you can enjoy the sport of barefoot water ski. Whether you're in wakeboarding or whether you're in tournament, it's the same thing. So sometimes decisions have to be made in the best interest of the business of the sport. So what will governance provide? So what does actual good governance provide? Well, the first thing it does, strong and effective, will deliver to a club or an organisation really good, strong leadership. Okay, so you've got a very effective structure. You've got an up-to-date constitution that your management committee know. They have read it. They understand most of it. I'm not saying that everybody has to understand the constitution from the first page to the last. And by the way, they are trying to slim them down a little bit, so they're not 22 pages long. However, there are some things that are fundamental within a constitution, and that's the rights and privileges of members, the objectives of what your constitution is about. So one of the things that you can have a look at in regards to your constitution, and we will just briefly touch on it tonight, is actually go in and have a look at the objectives of your organisation and just see whether those particular objectives are still relevant to what you're dealing with today. You know, some constitutions were made back in the 1980s, and what the objectives were then are totally different to what they are in 2023. Yet they've never been reviewed, never been updated. So when you're looking at, say, going for funding and that, some funding applications actually ask for a copy of your constitution. Why do they do that? They go in and they have a look at what your objectives are. Because quite often within a funding application, they ask, what is the objective of this? Or what is the objective of your organisation? And so you write something about, you know, we want to, you know, have as many people as possible, you know, attend our sport. Yet when they look at it in the Constitution, there's no mention of it anywhere there. So it's about making sure that things align. As well as that, developing your policies. One of the areas, and it is an area of concern, and hopefully over the next 12 to 18 months, there will be more support provided in the area of developing and endorsing policies to create a safer, more diverse, more inclusive, more secure environment around how you are running your organisation. At this stage, the delivery of policies from the national organisation down into clubs is a little bit fractured, but hopefully over the next 12 to 18 months, this will be improved, and from there, we will have greater awareness amongst those who are volunteering about what is appropriate, inappropriate, what is safe, what is secure, what is inclusive, what is non-inclusive, and the relevant policies, procedures, the guidelines, and the rules to support these. These also then ensure that you can deliver the club a clear pathway of improved communication, you know, clear decision making, leading to improved relationships with your engaged active members. So we're talking about making sure things like good governance is about minutes of your meetings being placed up on your website so that members, if they say choose, can have a look at them. There's a part in your constitution where it says, you know, members are allowed access to the minutes of the meeting on, you know, application to the secretary or something like that. But by putting them up on the website, you're just endorsing that clear and transparent aspect of, well, here's the minutes. You know, we've got nothing to hide, you know, so here, have a look. The only, I guess, proviso I'll put on that is that if you're dealing with a legal situation or something in regards to, you know, slander or something like that, that those particular aspects are not put out there for general discussion. So clubs still need to use their common sense in regards to what they do put out there. But if members are interested to see how the club's travelling financially, then they can look at the minutes and see the financial report and go, yep, that looks like it's all going well. Or why is the club making a decision about, you know, whatever it might be? Oh, okay, that discussion was held in the minutes. So those types of things will improve your relationships with your members, and also it will show your members that, you know, your committee are making clear decisions, and they're making them by actually getting together and discussing them. But as I mentioned in admin, that doesn't give a committee a recipe then to spend 2 hours discussing whether you should be putting up the price of burgers in the canteen, because that's not effective. And that. Okay. Strong and effective governance will ensure your club or association manages its activities effectively for both the members and the stakeholders. Committees and boards will fully understand their responsibilities as well as the key operational aspects of their club or association. If you are a new volunteer coming on board and you were coming in to join the committee and moving forward, wouldn't it be great if you were offered 3 months of mentoring before you actually took on your position? So 3 months before the AGM, you'd been approached and said, would you like to take on the role because our current treasurer or secretary or whoever it might be will be leaving, and we've identified that you have the skills on board that will make a great treasurer or secretary or whatever it might be. And that person has said, yep, that's fine. So for 3 months, they've been given mentoring and education and training into how the committee meets, how it regulates its proceedings, everything like that. As well as that, you've been given a copy of a strategic plan that shows you where the club is heading, what its general direction is, and what its focus and priorities are. As well as that, you've been given an operational plan on what the current committee are trying to achieve. As well as that, you've been given a copy of a current constitution, which is relevant and up to date, plus a copy of your current bylaws. And by the way, constitutions and bylaws should be separate. They shouldn't be within constitutions, but you've got a copy of the bylaws as well. So that means that as a volunteer, you've got all the ammunition you need to come on board and hit the ground running, instead of turning up and basically being handed a whole heap of documents and, a good luck. And the other thing is that it often takes about 12 months for someone to settle into a position. So the more that you can do in regards to providing a smoother transition into that, then the more effective your club will be, and that means you'll be stronger and more effective in your governance. As I mentioned before, clubs and organisations need to look at themselves as a small business, and I know that I'm a life member of 2 clubs, and I've been a volunteer for as long as I can remember, and I still volunteer to this day. And sometimes it's difficult to put the emotion aside, especially when you're dealing with a very, very touchy subject. And you've got life members in there saying, I bled for this club and everything else like that. But however, at the end of the day, if you provide a justifiable reason and a clear explanation of why you're making a decision, then generally people will respect the decision made. They may not like it, but they will respect it as long as it is clear and it is transparent, and that's about good governance. It's about providing people with information. It's about providing explanation about the information. It's not about secret squirrel stuff. It's about being clear. It's about being transparent. And from there, you can then generally earn the respect of even the life members if you are doing something that particularly they have an emotional attachment to, which then leads back to operating your business as a small business. And that could be that, some clubs have money tucked away somewhere, and people spent years putting that, that nest egg away, and it was always for a rainy day. So nobody ever ventured near it because nobody wanted to touch it, and nobody wanted to invest the money in case they made a wrong decision and the club lost the money. But sometimes at the end of the day, if you can justify and you can provide that reasoning and it's tangible and it's strong, then you can operate yourself as a small business. And the classic example of that is when you draw down from those funds to provide a co-contribution to, say, an infrastructure project. So if you're looking to build a new clubhouse and you're going through the minor infrastructure program and you're looking for 350 grand, because that's the maximum that you can apply for at the moment, you have to provide 20% of the project. So if the project cost is, say the project cost is 300,000, then you need to provide 20% of that. And if the club has a sinking fund somewhere that's, then and it uses that to do that, well then, that is operating very smart and creating a new piece of infrastructure that will be an asset for your club for a long, long time, and then will help to, create new membership and new interest in your club. So basically, making those types of business decisions, whilst difficult, will always be accepted. So the other thing also is that it's important that when you have people come onto your committee, that you make them aware of all of the legal requirements of the club, such as the club, yes, it's registered as an ABN, yes, we're incorporated, yes, we have public liability insurance. In actual fact, it is part of your constitution. Generally, it's part of most constitutions that you need to provide a copy of your public and products. It might just be public liability insurance to anyone who's thinking about nominating for a position on the committee. And so it's a transition that is difficult, but if volunteers start to look at clubs as a small business and start to put in financial projections, start running budgets, then having a sustainable club that continue to move forward will ensure that you're governing the club appropriately. And as we talked about right at the very beginning, it was about making a sustainable organisation. Okay, so as I said, we're just quickly going to touch on a couple of the platform basis for running around with good governance. So one of them is obviously your constitution. And so it provides the base for all of the decisions that are made while ensuring that the club operates within its legal requirements. So obviously how you accept your members is set out within your constitution. Most clubs generally don't follow it because they generally don't sync in with the national organisations, registrations, and so on and so forth. But moving forward, clubs and organisations should be looking at how they can potentially align those types of things, the types of registrations against memberships. And also the ability to provide social membership. Wawa now have a sort of a club membership, but how does that fit in with your constitution? So they're the sort of questions you should be asking. And as I said, to have good governance, realistically, you should have a copy of your constitution for every member of your committee so that they can refer to it and you can understand it and know what it's about. Okay, the next one is your bylaws. So generally they sit underneath an endorsed constitution and they just tend to reflect the operational requirements of a particular establishment. So we're talking about things like, bylaws are that boats go in here, that, there's no skiing within a certain area, those types of things, camping is allowed over in a certain area, but not in another certain area. Those are things in regards to bylaws. And also then you have your competition rules and regulations as well. So there's all sort of, and the reason you have them as bylaws is because you want to be able to change them through a management committee. The only way you can change a constitution, obviously, is to have a special general meeting. And, you know, if you're changing things in your bylaws, then, and they're sitting within your constitution, then it's going to be a lot of special general meetings that you haven't. And as we said, becoming more efficient means you're governing better. So if you've currently got bylaws that are sitting within your constitution, you may want to have a special general meeting to actually get them out and have them sit by themselves. Policy. Policy is a document that's used to support making decisions in the best interests of the members and the organisation. Policy document provides guidance and direction when requiring a base to substantiate a decision being made or to implement a ruling. So once again, this is about making sure that, as we talked about earlier, having people with blue cards and coaching accreditation, because your policy is no one can undertake a junior coaching course unless they are an accredited club coach and they have a current blue card, and that's your policy. So as we go through the next 12 to 18 months, and there is more focus in on management governance and the education and training, policies and procedures will become a key factor. So this particular presentation and this particular project has been about trying to create some awareness around all of the various areas that it takes to operate a club, so that as an organisation or as a club or whatever you're representing, you can go away now going, well, I heard a lot, don't really fully understand exactly what's being talked about because it didn't dive in too deep, but I understand that there are changes coming, and that as an organisation we need to be aware that they're coming and we need to start preparing for them so that we can continue to run as an effective organisation and that we're providing really, really good governance. And so the final two factors in regards to good governance, the base of it is accountability. So strong and effective governance means an acceptance of responsibility, being honest and ethical, with honest and ethical actions at all times. So always acting in the best interests of those you represent. Okay, so always at the back of your mind as a committee member, what is in the best interests of the club? And transparency, the key fundamental base on which good governance is delivered. Honesty and openness in all the actions of an organisation will result in trust and respect, leading to a stronger and resilient organisation capable of facing the challenges of the modern volunteer environment. And it is a difficult environment to navigate these days. It used to be the simple factor of, well, who can volunteer on the barbecue this weekend? Now you have to go through all the protocols of, do you know how to operate a barbecue, and so on and so forth. It is difficult, but it can be managed, and it's certainly not within the realms of impossibility. It just needs some really careful thinking about how, as an organisation, you move forward. And so when you start to involve yourself in all of the various bits of good governance, linked to the management, linked to the administration, your club will grow and it will develop and the members will be happy and satisfied. So in conclusion, this is the final forum. I hope that if you've attended some of the other webinars that you've been able to take something away from that. As I mentioned before, these are being recorded and they will be available in the new year to view off the QWWF website. However, if you'd like a copy of tonight's webinar, then most certainly email me and I will send it through. And this also represents the finish of stage 2, which was the webinar series. We're now going to move to stage 3 early in the new year, which will be the drop down of the information, plus also documents to support the education, training and management in governance, admin and management. So things such as volunteer job descriptions and so on and so forth will be uploaded, and they will be there for everyone's use. And then our final stage, and as part of the overall project, is some mentoring support provided by my company, ProSport International, through until the 30th of June next year. So if you're on a committee that are looking to, review and update your own management, admin or governance principles and protocols, then I can certainly, as an example, sit in on a meeting and just provide some feedback and some thoughts and some suggestions on how you're conducting the meeting and what may help to support perhaps making it a little bit more efficient, or saying absolutely nothing because you're running a really great meeting and it just needs someone from outside to just endorse it and to say, yep, you're doing a great job. But also to create a little bit more awareness about those policies. Governance is a scary word, and a lot of people get very, very worried about it, but it doesn't have to be. It's just a matter of understanding what your requirements are. And there are, from your constitution down, once you've got that in place, working through there. And then putting in place your steps and your processes, and then from there it will start to flow. So I thought I'd show you this today because this is what today's volunteer is sort of covering over. So you can see there that today's volunteer is everything from an accountant to an umpire. They take many hats. As well as that, they've got to have an understanding of all of these. And we're talking about, human resources. We're talking about, meeting with members and, perhaps settling them down after an unfair decision, as they felt it was. But all the other things, and we talked about running your club as a small business, so budgets, planning, those types of things. So it generally ends up with a volunteer looking like this. And so today, and all of the webinars to date and the presentations, they're about trying to take away some of those question marks and to de-stress the volunteer a little bit while helping to create that stronger, more sustainable organisation so that you're around in the next 50 to 100 years and you're still going strong. So that concludes our webinar for this evening. I will stay online, and if anyone has any questions that they'd like to shoot through, and I'll also people can also unmute, and if you wanted to just ask me a question verbally, then I'll do my best to answer those. But if you're heading off, I'd like to say a very Merry Christmas, and I hope that this particular webinar has given you a bit of an insight into the trials and tribulations of good governance, but hasn't scared you away. And as I said, over the next 12 to 18 months, there will be more support coming, and we will, in Queensland, remain the national leader for water ski and wakeboarding in Australia. So thanks very much, everyone. If there's no questions, then I will wish you all a Merry Christmas again. Have a safe New Year, and goodbye. Good night.